Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gee, I wish I had that much power at home with the children. I've usually got to do the 1, 2, 3 count. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Brendan Kieran. I'm a cultural representative of Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council in Sydney, and our role as Aboriginal Land Council under the Land Rights Act, we have become the cultural authority, the guardians of the land within the Eora boundaries. Those boundaries of the Eora Nation start from the ocean, and they're surrounded by 3 of Australia's most beautiful rivers. We have the Hawkesbury River, the Nepean River, and the Georges River. And in between those 3 mighty and beautiful rivers, we've got 29 clans which make up the Eora Nation. And the name of the clan that we're gathered on here tonight is Gadigal. My connection to country, I was born not far from here, Crown Street Women's Hospital at Surrey Hills. I'm a Crown Street baby. And that's the very last time in that hospital in 1971 that I ever felt my mother's touch in that hospital. I was taken away from her and I never saw her again. I found I'm one of 10 siblings that have been removed, and I'm the 2nd generation of my family that's been removed as well. So my mother, my aunties and uncles, and my cousins were all taken. I've met 3 brothers and 1 sister. None of us have spoken for 5 years. And for me as an Aboriginal person, and I would assume for a lot of people, knowing where you come from makes who you are. And for an Aboriginal person to grow up and not have a traditional connection to country made my life very hard. I grew up not black enough to play with the black kids and not white enough to play with the white kids. So I copped it from both sides of the fence. But I gave it back, both sides of the fence as well. I've had a lot of fun as well with ignorance. I grew up at a time where the colour of my skin dictated who I was. I grew up at a time where media and we Aboriginal people copped a hell of a lot of bad publicity back in the day. So for an Aboriginal person to be removed from family, to grow up in a foster family, and my only exposure really to Aboriginal people was what I saw on the media. And I saw things like alcohol, dole bludgers, petrol sniffers. So for me, I thought, oh, maybe that's what I've got to be in order to be Aboriginal. I've got to be like that. But as I said, I've had a lot of fun with ignorance. I grew up in Newtown for a little bit. I spent a bit of time in Newtown. There's a Greek community in Newtown. And I remember the old Greeks would come up to me and start talking in their language. And I'd say, oh, I don't understand what you're saying, mate. And he'd say, sorry, you look like you come from Cyprus. This is before I had the beard. I never used to have a beard the whole time. I've got a few mates that I'd say were born with a beard. And then I moved to Marrickville, and Marrickville had the Maltese community. And they were a little bit more passionate about claiming me as being Maltese. Are you sure? You sure? You look like you're related to the Phoenix. And one day I went to primary school where it was compulsory for all the kids to learn Arabic. And so I copped that tag as well. And one day I had a light bulb moment and I thought if I was to grow a long beard and bought a gold cross and I went and robbed a bank, the description of the bank robber would be Middle Eastern European. And I could run around the corner, have a shave and get away with it. I'll be honest, I never robbed the bank. I did think about it for a while, but... And look, that's my connection to country, and I share this story, and I share a little bit of our history, because when you have a welcome to country, I'd like people to take that time out just to reflect on what Aboriginal people, what we've been through to get to where we are today. Because 10 years ago in Australia, we would never have had the opportunity to perform a welcome to country or an acknowledgement of country. So for me, it shows as a nation we're moving forward in the way of that acknowledgement and recognition. We could move a lot bloody faster, but at least we're moving forward. And I know for a fact 10 years ago you would never have had a welcome to country performed by such a good-looking bloke as myself. So once again, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight to Gadigal. On behalf of those Gadigal ancestors that are past, because the spirits are still here, in the land, in the water, in the birds, in the trees. On behalf of Gadigal ancestors, welcome to Gadigal land. On behalf of myself, welcome to Gadigal. And on behalf of Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council, welcome to Gadigal land. I'd love to stay, but I've got to pay that white bloke Wilson for parking on my own land. And we all know he's not cheap either. I'd like to pay my respects to my elders, past, present, and emerging, and I extend that respect to my non-Indigenous brothers and sisters as well. The only thing that makes us different is our language. So once again, welcome to Gadigal, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very, very much, Brendan. We've got to pay that white bloke Wilson again as well, if it's any comfort to you, and we know all about it. Thank you so much for a welcome to country that goes far beyond the usual lip service formula, and I think gives us quite a good preparation for some of the matters that we'll be talking about and thinking about later in the evening. And the warmest of welcomes from me to your state library, your local library, which is not only built on Gadigal land, but largely built out of Gadigal land as well. I know that we have a number of very distinguished First Nations people in the audience tonight. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and I'm delighted to have them in our audience as well. This is a really exciting night for us. It's the first time we've got together in 2 years. This is the first on-site, in-person Premier's Literary Awards ceremony since 2019. We believe it's also the largest we've ever had. We're trying a new formula. It's the first one in the newly refurbished Mitchell Library Reading Room. You'll see that since the last time many of you visited here, the hole in the floor down at the northern end has been filled in. We now have room for nearly 70 more readers than we used to. We have beautiful new carpet. We've stopped the ceiling leaking. We've painted the roof. We're fixed, and also tonight is free. The PLA ceremony in the past was always something that you had to pay for. For a while it was a dinner next door in the Parliament that cost nearly $100. We brought the price down, but there were always tickets. And we're really keen in the future that it stays free. What I want is for this to turn into a big annual event where readers and writers and publishers and authors and editors and designers, anyone interested in reading the production of books in any way, can get together, first of all, for the formal part of the evening where we celebrate the winners of the awards, but then, just as important, a chance to meet each other, get to know each other in relaxed circumstances. So, really wonderful to have you here. We're honoured to have with us tonight our new Minister, the Honourable Ben Franklin, MLC, the Minister for the Arts, the Honourable Mark Curé, the Minister for Multiculturalism, who I didn't meet. I think he was on his way in just when I got up onto the platform. The Honourable Gabrielle Upton, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier, the Honourable Walt Secord, Shadow Minister for the Arts, and his wife Julia, also great friends of the library. Dr. Harry Haranath, the Chief Executive Officer of Multicultural New South Wales, the Honourable Peter Collins, the President of the Museum of Art, Applied Arts and Sciences, former Minister of the Arts, another great friend of the library. My friend Mr. Adam Lindsay, the Director of Sydney Living Museums, members of our Library Foundation Board, members of the Library Council, first of whom is the Honourable George Souris, who is now going to approach the platform to introduce the Minister.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, Uncle Brendan, for a really wonderful and personal welcome to country. It made me feel welcome, and I acknowledge and pay my respects in the way that he has described. I'd like to add also my welcome to everybody here this evening. I think John has mentioned just about everybody who should have been mentioned, particularly my former parliamentary colleagues and a couple who have become parliamentary colleagues subsequently. But it's always a great pleasure to be here with my colleague members of Library Council, with particularly King Williams and Rob Thomas, who are the co-chairs of the Library Foundation, but also the many members of staff and the cohort of people who are part of the library family. When you become a member of the State Library of New South Wales, it's very rarely that you don't do it with full passion and love for the institution. It just gets people like that, whether they started off as students downstairs in the locker room and ultimately got married, or whether they are researchers who are doing wonderful work. My job solely is to welcome our Minister, Ben Franklin, to give his address. And I'd like to say that Ben's a friend of mine from many, many years. In case you're wondering, you get two choices. He's either a relative of the former American President, Benjamin Franklin, or he's the great-great-nephew of Banjo Paterson. I know it doesn't expire with points and you get another clue. It's the latter, of course. And Ben is the great-great-nephew of Banjo Paterson. He is also a friend of the library, and we're very, very thankful and happy to have him as a friend of the library. He's also an opera lover, and I think that's a good balance. And I extracted out of him, I didn't know this, you should never tell a person who's about to make a speech something you might not want them to say, but he is a former tertiary educated tenor, opera tenor. And that's interesting to know that, and I'm delighted to hear it. So, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, we do want to get the awards underway, but first of all, we'd love to hear from you, Minister Ben Franklin.
Well, thank you very much, George. And before I begin, can I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which we're all meeting this evening, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. To pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and to thank them for their custodianship of this land for tens of thousands of years, land that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Can I also thank Uncle Brendan? That was a beautiful welcome to country, and I particularly think it's incredibly important to continue to reflect upon the stolen generations. To continue to acknowledge that some of them made it home, Some of them are still on their journey, and some of them will never have the experience of being reunited with their family again. But to all of them we say we acknowledge your pain and your heartache, and we are sorry. I also have another apology this evening, and that is, of course, for the Premier of New South Wales. These are the Premier's Literary Awards, not the Arts Minister's Literary Awards, but the Premier does send his profound apologies for not being here. I think we're all very used to things changing at the last minute over the past couple of years, and new priorities come and new issues arise that need to be dealt with. Unfortunately, one of those has happened this afternoon, so the Premier sends his apologies and says that he would have loved to have been here. I suspect genuinely he would have much preferred to be here than where he is now, but nonetheless, he does send his apologies. Can I welcome, of course, also my many parliamentary colleagues who are here tonight. Thank you, George, to you, to the Library Council of New South Wales, and your extraordinary leadership alongside, of course, Dr. Vallance, the State Librarian, who has done an extraordinary and an outstanding job in revitalising this incredibly important space. Can I welcome all judges, esteemed authors and publishers, but most of all to every single person in this room who's united by their delight in and their love of the written word. Because literature is so important. It's a diverse and thriving and central part of New South Wales's cultural life. With a global reputation for excellence, this vibrant creative industry embraces everything from graphic novels and picture books to historical essays and deeply evocative fiction. And I'm so delighted to be here this evening to acknowledge and applaud the sector and to celebrate the seminal role that reading and writing play in all of our lives. We know that there's something incredibly special about the written word. Whether we're reading fiction or non-fiction, plays or poetry, literature gives us a glorious opportunity to hold a mirror up to ourselves and to reflect upon the world. I think we all know that there's something profoundly, almost spiritually important about books. They represent so much: our hopes, our experiences, our understanding about the world around us. Their creation has shone a light on the best of human history, and their destruction, the worst. I live on the northern rivers of New South Wales, ground zero for the carnage that was recently unleashed across our state. The desolation there was palpable and it was absolute. Homes, businesses, communities, all torn asunder. In the days and weeks after the floods, there was devastation everywhere you looked. But for me, there was one scene that will stay with me for the rest of my life. To see a cavalcade of waterlogged books being thrown from library windows onto an ever-increasing two-storey high pile cut so deeply. It wrenched from me and everyone who saw it profound heartache and tears and a deep, deep sense of loss. For what had happened, certainly, but for what it represented. But hope's returning to Lismore. The town will rebuild. I was up there on the weekend at that incredible flood concert, and already the energy and the excitement is palpable. And this year, this evening, we're here not to mourn the destruction of books, but to celebrate the creation of new cutting-edge literature, works that are holding a mirror up to the important aspects of the 2022 human experience through critique, reflection, and stories of hope. For more than 40 years, the Premier's Literary Awards have recognised hundreds of talented Australian writers. Many of these authors have gone on to great success both in Australia and internationally. And the 2022 shortlist showcases the richness and diversity of contemporary Australian literature, honouring both well-known writers and new voices. I'm so proud that the New South Wales Government supports this award and for their understanding of just how important it is to participate in arts and culture at every level, because everyone deserves the right to be creative. Simple acts such as singing in a choir or attending an art class or reading a book help us all to live a fulfilling and creative life. For this reason, I encourage everyone to visit your favourite bookseller or local library, or even just go out into the foyer and pick up a copy of one of this evening's nominees. I guarantee you won't regret it. So thank you so much to the State Library of New South Wales for running these awards, for hosting tonight's presentation. We genuinely couldn't do this without you. To all the shortlisted authors and winners, I extend my warmest congratulations to you all. We've all gone through some truly horrendous times over the past few years, but your work and these wonderful new books allow us all to see the brightest of futures ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. Very much appreciated. And now, would you please welcome my colleague Louise Arnamout to the stage, the Dixon librarian, my offsider here, and she is going to assist the Minister in making this year's presentations. Louise.
Okay, thank you, John. So, if I could call you up now, Minister, Mr. Franklin. And Mr. Franklin will be presenting the awards. So the first award will be presented this evening for debut writers, the UTS Glenda Adams Award for New Writing. And this award is sponsored by the University of Technology, Sydney, and it has been sponsored since 2005 by UTS. And we're joined this evening by Dr. Delia Falconer, Associate Professor Deborah Adelaide, and Mr. James Liu from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And thank you for your ongoing support. The shortlisted books in this category are The New Animal by Ella Baxter, Allen and Unwin, Friends and Dark Shapes by Kavita Bedford from Text Publishing, Low Expectations by Stuart Everly Wilson, Text Publishing, Night Blue by Angela O'Keefe from Transit Lounge, The Archaeology of a Dream City by Monica Reshevsky from Balestia Press, and Hold Your Fire by Chloe Wilson, Scribner, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster, Australia. And the winner this evening is Chloe Wilson for Hold Your Fire. And that's published by Scribner, Simon & Schuster, Australia.
Heavy. Due to an oversight on my part, there actually aren't any acknowledgements in Hold Your Fire, and I haven't thanked anyone yet. So I'd like to take the opportunity to rectify that now and thank some people. So my thanks to the agents who initially represented the book, Kate Johnson and Rach Crawford at Wolf Literary, as well as my present agent, Sarah Chalfant, my publisher, Ben Ball, and editor, Meredith Rose. To Anna O'Grady, Anthea Barriamus, and everyone else at Scribner and Simon & Schuster who worked on the book. To Rodrigo Corral for the incredible cover. To the editors of Granta, the Iowa Review, and the other journals where the stories were first published. To the judges of this prize. It's such an honour, particularly given the other wonderful books on the shortlist. And lastly, my thanks to my family, in particular Mum, Godfrey and Oscar, for their love and forbearance. Thanks.
Indigenous Writers Prize, After Story by Larissa Behrendt, University of Queensland Press, Ghost Bird by Lisa Fuller, University of Queensland Press, Bila Yarradangalang Duray, River of Dreams by Anita Heiss, Simon & Schuster, Australia, True Tracks, Respecting Indigenous Knowledge and Culture by Terry Janke, New South Press, The Boy from the Mish by Gary Lonesborough, Allen and Unwin, and God, the Devil and Me by Alf Taylor, Magabala Books. And the winner this evening is Anita Heiss for Bila. For Bila Yarradangalang Duray. Or River of Dreams, published by Simon & Schuster, Australia.
Marangiria, Baladua Radria Gialang, Aramajibu Brungley Bulmi Gandhi Bala Williams, Ina Maladu, Waradjuri Balga Balga Galangbu, Balagi Bangbu, Balambangbu, Nurmbangbu, Injamaladu, Gadigogu, Eoragu, City of Sydney, Maine. Good evening, everyone. I have Wiradjuri belonging from Arambi and Brungle missions in central New South Wales. I'm a Williams. I honour my Wiradjuri elders, those who have passed over, my ancestors and country. And tonight I pay my respects to the traditional owners and the first storytellers of this place that we now call the City of Sydney, the Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation. I'd like to acknowledge my peers, some of whom are my very close friends, and I thank the judges for their hard work in bringing us together tonight. I was incredibly humbled just to be shortlisted. I want to give a shout out to my very dear friend and agent of 18 years, Tara Wynne, who has my back every single day with every project that I do. And to everybody at Simon & Schuster, my publisher Kaz, Anna, my publicist, Dan, the entire team who got behind Bila Yarradangalang Duray, and great pronunciation there, it's not easy.
Thank you. I've practiced.
Thank you. Who, because they believed what I believe, and that it is a story for all Australians, and that I want all Australians to understand that wherever you walk on this land, there is a first language, and it's not English. And finally, to my beautiful family, my mum, Uncle Stan Grant, Auntie Betty, Bajaja, Elaine Lomas, who support me every day, who got right behind Bila Yarradangalang Duray. I stand on the shoulders of my very proud elders, and they balance me, and I'm grateful. So, Yinjimarabu Mandangul.
And next is the Multicultural New South Wales Award, and this award is sponsored by Multicultural New South Wales. And we're joined this evening by the Minister for Multiculturalism, the Honourable Mark Curray, the Chairman of Multicultural New South Wales, Dr Harry Haranath, OAM, and the CEO of Multicultural New South Wales, Joseph Laposta. And thank you very much for your support. The shortlisted works in this category are Coming of Age in the War on Terror by Randa Abdel Fattah, New South Press, Still Alive, Notes from Australia's Immigration Detention System by Safdar Ahmed, 12 Panels Press, Take Care by Eunice Andrada, Giramondo Publishing, Cursed by Cody Bedford, Belvoir Street Theatre, The Mother Wound by Amani Haydar, Pan Macmillan, Australia, and Tiger Daughter by Rebecca Lim, Allen and Unwin. And the winner this evening is Safdar Ahmed for Still Alive, Notes from Australia's Immigration Detention System.
I'd like to thank everyone who collaborated with me to make Still Alive possible. Everyone in the Villawood Detention Centre and members of the Refugee Art Project, which is a community art organisation that I've been involved with for the last decade. Thank you for sharing your stories with me, particularly to Haider Ali and Amir Taginia, who was imprisoned on Manus Island for 4 years. Big thanks to my publisher, thank you to the judges, and particularly to my family for all their support.
And now the Nick Enright Prize for Playwriting. The shortlisted works are Cursed by Cody Bedford, Belvoir Street Theatre; Green Park by Elias Jameson Brown, Griffin Theatre Company; Queen Fatima by James Elazi, National Theatre of Parramatta, and published by Australian Plays Transform; Hibernation by Finnegan Krukemeyer, State Theatre Company of South Australia, and published by Currency Press; Orange Thrower by Kirsty Marillier, Griffin Theatre Company, National Theatre of Parramatta, and published by Currency Press; York by Ian Michael and Chris Isaacs, published by Black Swan Theatre Company. And the winner this evening is Kirsty Marillier for Orange Thrower.
Wow, I'm like fully shaking. Just give me a moment. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, elders past, present and emerging, for allowing me to be an artist on Aboriginal land. Thank you so much to the State Government of New South Wales, the State Library of New South Wales and the judges for this award. To win the Nick Enright is truly cooked. To my fellow nominees, to be listed amongst such exceptional playwrights is a win in itself. Thank you to Griffin Theatre Company with all my heart, the SBW Foundation, the National Theatre of Parramatta for staging this bombastic work, to Currency Press for publishing that bombastic work. Thank you to Joanne Key and Imogen Gardam, our vibrant cast and crew, my director and sis, Zinzi Okenyo, and Declan Green. I developed a lot of this play over Zoom during the pandemic, and over that time, nothing was as fascinating as watching how enthusiastic Declan Green is over a plot document. Declan taught me the greatest lessons of being a playwright, and I am forever indebted to him. Thank you to my partner, Tom, for listening to me talk about my plays incessantly, my best friend, Thomas Wilson White, and lastly, the South African women in my life who've taught me how to stay resilient amidst the uncertainty of being a mixed-race black woman from a country which was subject to separateness for so many years. Thank you to them, my parents, my sister. Orange Throwers for you.
And now the Betty Rowland Prize for Script Writing. Nitram by Sean Grant, A Good Thing Productions. Ablaze by Alec Morden and Tiriki Onus, Yachts Productions. Bump, Episode 10, Matrescence, Season 1 by Kelsey Munro, Roadshow Rough Diamond and Stan. And The Drover's Wife, The Legend of Molly Johnson by Leah Purcell, Umbara Productions. And the winner this evening is Sean Grant for Nitram, Good Thing Productions.
Thank you. I've been fortunate enough to be nominated or shortlisted a few times over the years and unfortunate enough to lose every time. So this is a pleasant change. Congrats to all the other shortlisted screenwriters for their fine work. I must thank my agent of many, many years, Catherine Fleming, who's here this evening. I must thank the other important woman in my life, my wife, Annabelle, who is not. Particular thanks to the New South Wales Government and the State Library for their generosity. I've won a few gold trophies over the years, but they don't pay the bills and they don't give you time to do what you love. Cash prizes do. So thank you for that. NetRound was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, certainly the hardest thing I've ever had to make. So hopefully tonight is, and its acknowledgement tells writers that they can make challenging work that challenges audiences, challenges themselves, even when other people tell them that they shouldn't. Thank you very much.
Okay, Patricia Wrightson Prize for Children's Literature. Me, Microbes and I by Philip Bunting, Hardy Grant Children's Publishing. My Brother Ben by Peter Carnavas, University of Queensland Press. Bear and Rat by Christopher Chang and Stephen Michael King, Penguin Random House Australia. Dragon Skin by Karen Foxley, Allen and Unwin. Always by Morris Gleitzman, Penguin Random House Australia. And Bindi by Curly Saunders, Megabala Books. And the winner this evening is Peter Carvanis for My Brother Ben, published by University of Queensland Press. So Peter can't join us this evening, but he has sent a video acceptance speech.
Hi, I'm sorry I can't be there, but I'm on crutches at the moment. I just wanted to send a message to say thank you and to let you know how much I appreciate this award. When I saw my name on the shortlist, I was so excited to be amongst the best book creators in the country. Some of these people are the ones that inspired me to become an author in the first place. So thank you to the judges. I know it's an almost impossible job. So many thanks, not just for your decision, but for the hours that you spent reading and thinking about these books. Thank you to my UQP family, to Ben, Madonna, the whole team, and especially publisher Claire Hume and editor Kathy Valance. Along with editor Mark McLeod, they helped to transform this book from a sweet idea into something of which I'm immensely proud. They teach me so much about writing with every exchange, although I still use too many commas. Thanks also to publicist Jean Smith and to everyone in rights, contracts and marketing at UQP. My Brother Ben is a book about brothers. I dedicated it to my own brothers. I wrote it in memory of my mum, but it's really for my whole family. No matter what I set out to write, it's always about family. So thanks to my parents, my siblings, to my wife Bronnie and my daughters Sophie and Willow. Finally, a quick thanks to all the booksellers and libraries who make children's books available, and in particular the teachers and teacher librarians all around the country. Anyone who works to make reading a rewarding experience for children should be given an award every single day. So thanks once again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
And now the Ethel Turner Prize for Young People's Literature. The shortlisted works this evening are Waking Romeo by Catherine Barker, Allen and Unwin. Girls in Boys' Cars by Felicity Castagna, Pan Macmillan, Australia. The Gaps by Leon Hall, Text Publishing. Are You There, Buddha by Pip Harry, Hachette, Australia. Tiger Daughter by Rebecca Lynn, Allen and Unwin. And Henry Hamlet's Heart by Rhiannon Wild, University of Queensland Press. And the winner is Leanne Hall for The Gaps by Text Publishing.
I'm terrible at smiling on cue, so I apologise for that photo. I acknowledge that I'm receiving this award on the unceded land of the Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to Gadigal elders past and present. Thanks also to the New South Wales Government and the State Library of New South Wales for their support of these awards. Thank you to the judges for all of their hours of reading and consideration and bringing their years of experience and expertise to the role. I'd really like to thank my publisher, Text Publishing. I've been with them for 4 books now, so thank you for sticking with me. The Gaps was edited and published and released during Melbourne's rolling lockdowns last year, and I spent a lot of time alone in my own house, and at that time it was really stories that gave me comfort, distracted me, kept me alive really in many, many ways. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the writers in this room that persisted in writing at such a strange time in the world, and in particular a huge thank you to the other authors on the shortlist: Catherine Barker, Felicity Castagna, Pip Harry, Rebecca Lim and Rhiannon Mild. Thank you for writing your books.
And now the Kenneth Slessor Prize for Poetry. The shortlisted works are Take Care by Eunice Andrada, Giramondo Publishing, Drop Bear by Evelyn Araluen, University of Queensland Press, 1,000 Crimson Blooms by Eileen Chong from University of Queensland Press, Accelerations and Inertias by Dan Disney, Vagabond Press, Super Vivid Depasturalism by John Kinsella, Vagabond Press, Theory of Colours by Bella Lee, Vagabond Press, and the winner this evening is Dan Disney for Accelerations and Inertias, Vagabond Press. So Dan is also unable to join us this evening, but he too has sent a video acceptance speech.
Hi, my name is Dan Disney, and I will confess to feeling fairly overwhelmed and somewhat astonished that the judges' attention landed amid this constellation of astonishing books finally on Acceleration and Inertias as this year's elected winner for the Kenneth Slessor Award. Thank you to the judges for this paradigm-shifting, life-changing, transformative news. There are a couple of people, there are so many people that I have to thank, but there are, in this limited time, 2 people that I must publicly acknowledge. The first, the Australian writing community lost in February. And of course, Geordie Elbiston's death continues to send seismic shockwaves through the Australian poetry community. Geordie was, of course, a pivotal, catalysing, central figure in the discourse of Australian poetry, and all I can say is that, Geordie, we promise to keep you and your work in an important part of our hearts and minds. The other person that I need to publicly acknowledge is my magnificent wife, Son Ha. The poems in Accelerations and Inertias speak from, around, toward and of Son Ha. Without Son Ha in my life, there is no Accelerations nor Inertias. 이 Son Ha, 여봉아, 정말 사랑해요. Udon. To everyone who's there tonight, I wish that I could be there. I'm currently broadcasting from the middle of nowhere, deep in the mountains of Gyeongsangbuk-do, about 4 hours to the south of Seoul, from the mountain that Son Ha and I own. I hope that, or we hope that one day some of you at least will come visit us. We'd very much like that. Until then, I hope that you and yours are safe and well and free from the virus while it does what it's doing. It's really such an incredible and unexpected honour to receive this award. Once again, I'm sending my sincerest and most heartfelt thanks to the judges. Thank you.
And next, the Douglas Stewart Prize for Non-Fiction. The shortlisted works this evening are Leaping into Waterfalls, The Enigmatic Gillian Mears by Bernadette Brennan, published by Allen and Unwin. Black and Blue, a memoir of racism and resilience by Veronica Gorey, Scribe Publications. The Mother Wound by Amani Haydar, Pan Macmillan, Australia. The Winter Road, a story of legacy, land and a killing at Cropper Creek by Kate Holden, Black Ink Books. The School, The Ups and Downs of 1 Year in the Classroom by Brendan James Murray, Pan Macmillan, Australia. And Rogue Forces by Mark Willesee, Simon & Schuster, Australia. And the winner this evening is Kate Holden for The Winter Road, a story of legacy, land and a killing at Cropper Creek. Now, this is not Kate. This is Kate's friend Alice Williams, who will be accepting the prize on Kate's behalf.
Hi everyone. If you've never had imposter syndrome, try it. Kate's actually in Paris, but she knows that I spend my evenings with a 3- and 5-year-old, and so she did me a solid. She also emailed me to say, and this isn't part of the speech, remember the nice things that people say about my book for later reporting to me. So if you have read The Winter Road, please come and find me. Okay, I'm just so thrilled about this, so sorry not to be there in person, and so grateful to my friend Alice Williams has come to be me tonight. Thank you, Alice, for standing for me here on Gadigal country. I still get a chance to say some thank yous. I'd like first to thank the Premier of New South Wales and Arts Minister, his department, the lovely judges and the State Library of New South Wales for hosting these awards, which mean so much to the writing community. My editor, Julia Calamagno, my agent Jane Novak and my publisher Black Ink helped me make this book, and so did my family, my partner Tim Flannery, our son and my writing friends. I'd like to acknowledge 3 mentors, my teachers at RMIT, Di Websdale Morrissey and the late Laurie Clancy, and my first publisher, Michael Hayward. The Winter Road is a story of real people, and I'm just so glad to have a chance to thank several of them for letting me depict them, letting me talk with them and sharing their memories of the worst thing that ever happened to them, the murder of Environmental Officer Glenn Turner by Farmer Ian Turnbull. Glenn is dead, but I thank him too for the work he did and the good people he had in his life. This is a tale of a tragedy, the story of a murdered man and a murdered landscape as well. He and his killer both ended their lives over native vegetation clearing laws, which tells you how high the stakes are in that least dramatic sounding issue. There is an apocalypse of biodiversity loss happening in New South Wales right now, one that threatens all of us, and that story is yet to find an ending. I'm very honoured to have had a chance to tell part of it. Thank you so, so much. I'm just astonished by this.
And now the People's Choice Award. The People's Choice Award is selected by members of the public from the 6 books that are shortlisted for the Christina Stead Prize for Fiction. And this year they are Dark as Last Night by Tony Birch, University of Queensland Press. The Kindness of Birds by Melinda Bobus, Spinifex Press. The Shut-Ins by Catherine Braybon, Allen and Unwin. The Dogs by John Hughes, Upswell Publishing. Pushing Back by John Kinsella, Transit Lounge. The Performance by Claire Thomas, Hachette, Australia. And the winner this evening is Catherine Braybon for The Shut-Ins, published by Allen and Unwin.
Thank you. I thought this would be last, so it's completely taken me by surprise. Thank you. I live and work in Naarm, on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, always conscious that I am living and working on stolen land. I wrote this book about a culture that's not my own, and that's a task I didn't take on lightly. So I want to thank a lot of my Japanese friends, in particular Miyu, Nori and Rika, who encouraged me to write this book and also taught me so much in the process of doing it. Thank you to Annette from Allen and Unwin and the whole team there, and to my wonderful agent Claire Forster. Thank you to Marcin Wojcik for coming tonight and for your support. And finally, and importantly, I think I just want to lend my voice to the collective one that's speaking in particular at the moment about the arts and the state of funding. It is difficult to write a book. This is my second novel, and it is particularly hard when you're working 2 to 3 jobs at a time, and awards and grants are very rare and few and far between. And so I think it's important to keep talking about that and keep making that a very important and essential reality that it is. Thank you.
And from that previous shortlist now, the winner of the Christina Stead Prize for Fiction is Tony Birch for Darkest Last Night.
Thank you so much. I won't take too long. Everyone's dying for a wee, I think. I don't want to talk too long, but I don't want to forget what I want to say. So firstly, to Brendan for his wonderful heart talk. I really, the gratitude of being in this room and hearing Brendan talking to all the Gadigal mob, you have my utter respect. To the State Library of New South Wales, what a beautiful room this is. I got my first library card 60 years ago, and without the public library, I would not have become a writer, and without the public library, many people would never get to access books. These are our institutions that we should treasure, so it's wonderful to be here. I want to thank everyone at UQP, Ben, Madonna, Jacqueline, Jean, Aviva, Lou, and anyone else at UQP who I don't know. They've supported me now for, I think, 5 or 6 books, and they're remarkably loyal to my writing, and they let me do the sort of books that I want to do, that my critics, the general term is called grim. So they let me write grim fiction. I'm indebted for that. I want to thank 3 First Nations women who are important contributors to this book. Firstly, Jenna Lee, who designed the cover for Darkest Last Night. Jenna has now designed covers for 5 of my books, and she's a remarkable artist, remarkable designer, remarkable woman. Anita Few, a Māori woman living in Australia who wrote a poem called Darkest Last Night. She was editing my poetry collection, Whisper Songs. I was so taken with the poem, I asked firstly, could I use the title in a story, and then cheekily, could I use the title for a book, and she was very generous in letting me do that. And to Thelma Plum, who of course teaches us that you always look better in black. Thank you very much, Thelma. I want to thank my family very much, my partner Sarah, who has put up with my madness for 24 or 25 years. Who's counting? Sarah is counting. She's just a remarkable, remarkable woman, and I love her dearly. To my 5 children, Erin, Siobhan, Drew, Grace and Nina, I'm as proud of them as they are of me. And I want to accept this award for the protection of my 4 grandchildren, Isabel, Archie, Charlie, and my youngest grandson Louis, who is 2 weeks old today. I accept this for the protection of my children, my grandchildren, and I accept this for the protection of Aboriginal country and this planet. Please look after it. Thank you very much.
So, congratulations to all our category winners this year. There's one more award. Each of the winners you've just seen is now in the running to be named Book of the Year. And that book for this year is Still Alive, Notes from Australia's Immigration Detention System by Safta Ahmed.
I've got to do another speech. Thank you. This is completely unexpected. I certainly hope that this contributes towards, or makes some contribution towards a sea change in this country in terms of how our government treats people who come to Australia seeking asylum, away from a policy of unconscionably cruel, mandatory and indefinite detention, and towards something a bit more humane. So, thank you. Thank you.
Very much, Louise. We're rapidly approaching the end of the formal part of the evening, and as Tony Birch has just alerted us, there are people who have other requirements to attend to. But I do need to say a few thanks. As Louise said, we'd like to thank our sponsors again, and in particular Multicultural New South Wales, UTS, and in particular I'd like to thank the government that tipped in a little bit of extra money this year to allow us to put this on at no charge for everybody, and we're very grateful for that. And I'm hoping we'll be able to continue that into the future. I'd like to thank my colleagues Marcelo Flaxbart and his team, and Sarah Fishwick, who's up on the stage just now, for running this whole show. You don't often see this. I think it's Australia's greatest public room looking this beautiful. Thank you very much, Marcelo and Sarah. Thank you to our Minister for coming tonight, for representing the Premier, for speaking to us. I know that he has many cares at the moment as he settles into his new portfolio, and one of them is care for regional New South Wales and in particular regional youth. It's a concern that we very much share here because, as you probably know, the State Library is also responsible for the public library network throughout the whole state, which is also undergoing quite an exciting period of renewal at the moment. I should say that there's a very confusing quote I came across from Flaubert years ago. Flaubert apparently once said that true talent only flourishes in the absence of competition. And I'm always a little bit sus about awards like this and about prize winners and what happens to the shortlisted people. I think you should be encouraged to see whether Flaubert was right or not by going out into the foyer and buying a copy of every single shortlisted book as well as the winners, and all the profits from the sale of books tonight are going to go to the Lismore Library Appeal. This year there were 750 entries. 750 books were entered into the Premier's Awards, and judging them took a panel of 29 judges. And I'd like to thank especially, I can see her sitting there, aching with embarrassment, the senior judge, Jane McCready, and we have something for her, Sarah, do we? Jane, would you please join me in thanking the senior judge? That was a psychopathological COVID hug, if you thought it looked a little bit awkward. Tonight also marks the beginning of the Sydney Writers' Festival, so it's a very, very auspicious evening. So may I invite you now to relax, celebrate the opening of the Writers' Festival, celebrate what we've been exposed to this evening. Look forward to having you back next year, but I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a serious period of emergence from this wretched plague. It's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you for coming.